Hi, David. How are you doing today?
Good, good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad that we can meet in person because we're at AcadeCon 2022. David is here with his family, which is cool, and we're going to talk about some of David's games. I have Undaunted Stalingrad on my pre-order list. Hopefully getting that in 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, hopefully.
So yeah.
By end of November, beginning of December, something like that.
Yeah. And so you've done Undaunted, for those that don't know, and Resist, which will be hitting retail around January, probably?
Yeah, I think so. For people that are interested in Resist, it was back GameFound, whatever you call that, on GameFound, and a limited print run in English language, and it's being picked up by 25th Century for another English language print run now.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Because it looks great, and I missed out on that initially. I saw it like right after it ended, and I was like, oh. But, and then you have some great games from DVG, like Pavlov's House, and I love it by Stealth and Sea.
Right.
It's a great solo game, and you even have train games too. So tons of stuff you've done over the year. Like, how did you? Because the train game was pretty early on. I forget the name. I'm sorry.
Switch and Signal.
Yeah, Switch and Signal. How did you decide to go from that to doing war games?
Yeah, so I think as you know, when a game is released doesn't really necessarily reflect what it was designed, right?
Yeah, right.
And so even though Switch and Signal was published maybe in like 2020 or 2021 in English, something like that, maybe within the last year or two, the design for it started in like 2013 or so.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so at that point, when some of the games that are probably a little more different looking or feeling, that's what I'm working on now. When that came out, I was still very much in like, what kind of stuff am I going to do? I didn't necessarily know what my passion was going to wind up being, or where I was going to be sort of my comfort area. And so I think when you look at some of the games, like especially like my earliest game that was published, Armageddon, which was a co-design, they're very different than stuff I'm doing now, right? And that's not to say that I won't deviate in the future, but I think I've sort of found an area where more of my designs fit, right? So I think Switch and Signal just dates back when I was really first getting into the idea of board game design, and it just had a very different origin and everything else. At that point, I literally wanted to design a co-op train game for my parents. That was sort of the origin of that game, right?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's not a bad thing. Do they enjoy it then?
Yeah, they play it. The sort of reason for that is I introduced them to Ticket to Ride, and that's kind of the only hobby game they play. But they play it so much that the board like broke in half, the cards were gross from being handled so much. But my mom's not the most, she doesn't like to lose. Yeah. And so I was like, well, maybe they need a co-op train game, right? So that was the origin of that idea.
Huh, okay. Have you introduced them to the lunch ones like New York and Paris, San Francisco?
Yeah, they like I think they have every version of Ticket to Ride.
Okay.
So the only thing they play is Ticket to Ride, but they play them all. Right?
I mean, that's cool. I really like the Japan map. That's a nice map. And, I mean, it's still a fun game just to play with people without having to think too much, even if you play a lot of other games.
Yeah, and I like the small format ones, like the London and New York and stuff, because you get that feel in 20 minutes. And
they're a lot of fun. So, with your war games, do you research them, or like are you out reading a bunch of books, or are you watching movies and you're like, oh, this is a good idea for a movie, But how do you decide this is the next one I'm going to do? Yeah,
there's not necessarily one specific sort of point where I say, hey, this is a good idea. It can come from a different place, but once I make the decision, hey, this is a game I want to work on the more historical war game stuff. So not necessarily Undaunted, which is aimed at more of a broader audience, or Resist, but some of the like the DVG, like solo war games. It's usually about a year of research before I even start on the design, right? So I'll, like you said, read a bunch of books or whatever. And so it's a much different approach, because the idea there is, what is the actual historical event that what parts of it am I trying to recreate? And I want to make sure that I capture those important elements. So yeah, usually about at least 6 months, more like a year plus of research goes into those. But as far as where they come from, sometimes I'll be reading about it, but once you design a couple, people will start telling you, oh, you should do this, you should do this. And most of those ideas are like, yeah, whatever, but sometimes a really good idea will come by, and actually, I think that's how, like, for example, Soldiers in Postmen's Uniforms, which was a game in that same series at Pavlov's house. Someone just commented on Board Game Geek and said, what do you think about this idea? I knew nothing about it, and as soon as I read it, I was like, yes, absolutely, this is a good idea. And eventually, I went on to meet that person who recommended it in Poland, and did some research, and so it gets pretty serious, right?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Band of Brothers?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I am not. So I'm not also the kind of person who's like, oh, that I prefer the book over the movie, and disparage medias and all that kind of stuff. Like, so I kind of view everything in its own, like, as the person intended it to be, right? But I think Band of Brothers is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. And there's, the most recent game in that series, Lanzerath Ridge, takes place on the first day of the Battle of the Bulge. And there's some really good Bulge type episodes from Band of Brothers, right? So, I mean, not in the same exact area, but it definitely gives you the feel.
Okay. So right here, so I work for Catastrophe Games, and Tim and Mike, they got, you probably know what I'm going to say now. No, you don't.
Well, I know Tim.
Oh, okay. So Mike, what's Mike's last name? Anyways, he did Lappy, and he likes to do solo games and stuff. But they went off. We were on our company Discord, and they go off for like half an hour talking about Lanzerath Ridge. Like, you can't really carry a 50 cal by yourself. You can't carry.
Tim and I had that conversation. I think we had it over Twitter maybe or something. And it's like, well, Tim, all I know is a guy that kind of, said he carried the 50 cal, said he carried the 50 cal. But really, what's interesting about that, and this goes back to your question about research. Yeah. The problem I had with that whole, and so if people are watching, what we're talking about is in the game of Lanzerath Ridge. Yeah. The defenders have the ability to move some machine guns around. Yeah. So there's guys carrying VARs, which are that's designed to be carried around. Yeah. You have a 30 cal, which is clearly not something that a guy's just going to be wandering around with, but it is movable, right? It's transportable. And then you have this Jeep-mounted 50 cal. Right. So the problem is that multiple historical accounts reference repeatedly them repositioning the 50 cal. And so you have this issue where it's like, well, even if it didn't happen, there's a historic record that we have to be able to account for somewhat. Right? Yeah. So it is interesting though that I had that chat with Tim, and I was like, I don't know what else to do.
No. Basically, it was just funny because we were talking. We were supposed to be talking about board game design, and then they just go off on their tangent because they're both former Marines. Yeah. And Mike finally was like, "Well, it sounds like something my sergeant would have made me do, whether I wanted to do it or not." Like he's like, "Yeah, it's possible. I don't want to do it though." Yeah. So that's why I laugh because they just took that in a whole tangent of their experience. But I think that's the great thing about board games is that it can bring you into a world and make you start thinking about things. What board games have brought you to a different place maybe that you didn't think about before? Or I mean, you kind of mentioned like the fact that you've gotten to go to Poland and do things like that and met people. But, what other, maybe someone else's design or anything like that surprised you? Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, for sure on my own work, when I was working on Undaunted Normandy, I went to every location that's in Normandy, right? There was a battle featured in the game. So traveled for that, and like we talked about, I went to Gdansk in Poland for, what was Danzig. So I've traveled for my own stuff. But as far as other people's games, I mean, I mention this a lot when people ask me about inspirations. I think I owe a lot to A Few Acres of Snow by Martin Wallace, because for sure one thing that I've used is deck building, pool building type stuff, and that game was one of the very first games I played. So I came to board gaming pretty late. I grew up playing RPGs, and so that was one of the first board games I played, which
probably the second deck builder, right? I think the first ever deck builder I played was Arctic Scavengers, right? So like most people, most people grew up on Dominion, right, or Ascension or whatever, and not me. I was Arctic Scavengers and a few acres of snow. And so I saw really early on, like, oh, there's ways to do things like modeling, command and control, and fog of war, that kind of stuff's applied through something like deck building, where if a person's really into that, right? If a person's playing Undaunted and they are really into Platoon, World War II kind of stuff, they can see, oh, I understand what's happening, what's being modeled behind the scenes, right? Or they can know nothing about that and just play the game. And both are totally legit, right? And that, I think Few Acres of Snow really helped me see that, right? The opportunities, the possibility.
Yeah, that's cool. How far do you personally go? I know you have a decent collection of war games yourself, but like, do you do ASL and get into all that type of thing too, or
no, not really? I like historical games, and I say historical, like, so not necessarily war games, right? But like historical war games or historical games. But I also don't really like playing games. 2 hours is kind of my limit, right? That's kind of my breaking point. And so now I do occasionally buy stuff that's a little crunchier or meatier, but oftentimes not even to play. To like get it, read through the rules, lay it out, kind of push pieces around myself, just to explore the idea of the game without ever even planning to play it. But I don't really get into the super crunchy end. Like ASL would be, I think it's really cool. And so, like, I don't know if you know Gary, goes by Argwolf. He's got, so he's up in Columbus, right? And so when I go to Buckeye Game Fest, they're in their room and they're playing, it's going to be OCS, I think, one of the like very big monster type games. I think it's super cool. I would watch them. I would spend like 8 hours watching them play, but it's not for me. The actual playing is not for me. And so I prefer much tighter, tenser, shorter games. So like 13 Days or Watergate, something like that is more my...
I love Watergate. I mean, it's just... And then you're done, and you're like, one decision could have changed all that.
Exactly.
I saw you just got, I'm going to say it wrong, Ginomorpod. Right?
Yep.
Have you played it yet?
I have not played it. So it's sitting on my table. So I have 2 games sitting on my table right now. One is Final Girl, and I won't say the name wrong. So the game you're talking about, the Monsters of 2050 or whatever it is from Hollandspiel. Right?
Yeah, and Ryan Holland.
So I love his games. White Eagle Defiant is one of my favorite games.
It's a good game.
And so, and he's an awesome dude. So basically, if he's designing it, I'm likely to buy it, and if it's coming from Hollandspiel, I'm likely to buy it. So the two of them together is like an automatic purchase. So I'm super excited. And of course, I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, but like retro sci-fi or whatever you would call that look, that's pretty cool. So
well, I'm gonna go back to our Scavengers for a moment. What type of strategy did you take? Were you a nice player? Did you play by yourself, or did you play?
No, I have played with other people.
Were you a nice player, or did you turn into a cannibal?
In all games, like, okay, so interesting, a game that's similar to it in some regards is like Dune Imperium, right? Because you do the fight and stuff, right? So in that regard, it's kind of similar. I am the kind of player who would rather, this is so funny, kind of be left alone. Like I want to build my own little strategy and not really engage, unless it's a very, like, seldom, very high return on investment play, right? And so like in Dune Imperium, I'll only go to a fight if it's a fight I can get multiple victory points out at one time, right? I don't like fighting. And so in Arctic Scavengers, I usually was not really into fight much, kind of hold back, that kind of stuff.
Because I don't remember, I haven't played it in 3 years, but like, it was either in the base game or the expansion that like you could get very aggressive and be like cannibalistic.
It was one of the expansion factions or whatever. I had the same thing. I never really played the expansion that much. But I don't remember. But there was absolutely a cannibal that was all about eating people. I can't remember exactly how it worked.
And it was a clear path to victory, but like it was very aggressive. So what other? I mean, you've already mentioned a couple designers that you appreciate. Who else has influenced you, or maybe influenced you early on that doesn't influence you as much now?
That's a good question. So for sure, I mentioned Martin Wallace with A Few Acres of Snow, and I think Martin Wallace is a brilliant designer, I will say that I think some of his stuff is probably not as developed as it could be, right? If that makes sense.
Sure.
And I think that may have been, well, it could be for all sorts of reasons, right? I think some of that was when he was at Tree, he was his own publisher and was at Tree Frog, and maybe, missing out some of the development you would have gotten through with other publishers. I still, regardless of that, though, I think he's very super talented designer. I love Palomori. So Ethnos, Bliztkrieg, all of his stuff is fantastic, and I think he does a brilliant job of just elegance in design. And then John Butterfield, who's very much known in the solitaire war game community, fantastic designer. So I think that for sure, John Butterfield and Palomori right now would probably be my favorite two, which is very different. Like
I wasn't expecting you.
They're very different. But that's kind of how I kind of live in these two overlapping Venn diagram worlds of broader stuff and war games kind of bringing together sometimes. And so maybe that's kind of fusing some of those two sensibilities together. I'm not sure, but
I mean, we didn't mention War Chest earlier, but that is. Extremely accessible game because it's intuitive to anybody who's played chess.
Right.
And but it has. I always like a game that has another level of strategy. I don't mean that. I guess what I mean is I like when a game can be learned easily by someone, but then you can play against someone else who has played lots of other games and they see depths of things that they might be able to do as the game progresses, and I like that about War Chest. And so anyway.
Yeah, War Chest, of all the games that I've worked on, and so one thing we should talk about is a lot of the stuff that I've worked on are co-designs, right? So War Chest and Undaunted with Trevor Benjamin.
Yeah.
And so of all the stuff I've designed, the thing that's probably I'm most proud of, and I think is the coolest thing about War Chest is there is a lot of you could either call it depth or you could call it emergent strategy in War Chest,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I think it definitely lends itself well to that, right?
Yeah.
And so what's funny about, and this is how you know that's true. War Chest is on Yukata, and it's on Board Game Arena now, and there's a website dedicated to it called War Chest Online. So people that are interested, they can play in all those different places. If I was to go on those and play them, I'm probably middling. I mean, probably half the people who are on there that play seriously can beat me.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, a lot of that comes from emergent strategy that even as we were designing it, we designed for the intent of allowing for those things, but you can't see every possibility of everything that could ever come, right? Yeah. And so, it's awesome. When will this air? Soon.
Soonish, yeah.
Oh, soonish. I think I can say this. I won't get in too much trouble.
Okay, I acknowledge a little bit.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay,
That's okay. Yeah, we're just now starting to work on another expansion for it.
Oh, cool.
Which is super awesome. Now, what it does mean, though, is there's already 2 expansions, which means there's already 24 units.
Yeah.
And so the realm of possibility just continues to exponentially explode when you add new units, right?
Right.
With all the different interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already a lot if you have the both. So, what is your favorite part about working with a co-designer, and what's the hardest part about working with a co-designer?
So everyone's different, right? Every single co-designer is a different relationship, and it really is a relationship. The best part for me, right? Everybody's going to take away different things. The best part for me is it helps hold myself accountable, right? So if you're in that sort of relationship, you say, well, I have to get up and I have to work on this because I have a due date of whatever to get this done.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. Obviously, there's a lot of other benefits, like just having that collaborative brainstorming, partnership, that kind of stuff. If you're partnering with people effectively, you're probably building off of each other's strengths, right? Taking advantage of each other's strengths. There's a lot of benefit. The biggest challenge would be you kind of have to learn what you do. You have to learn all of that stuff when you're engaging in a new relationship. And so the biggest, some obvious examples are, Trevor and I have now been working together, we probably get together 3 times a week for 3 or 4 hours a day each time.
Okay.
And we've been doing that for 6 years.
Yeah.
So we know each other, right?
Yeah,
We have and if we think something's stupid, we can tell the other one this is idiotic and it's fine, right? It's full trust. But for example, I worked on a game recently with Jeff Engelstein.
Yeah.
We knew of each other, and we had a couple.
I might be saying it wrong.
What's that?
Zheng,
yeah. Or Zheng, yeah.
Zheng?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And so he reached out to me and said, hey, do you want to collaborate on this? And of course I said yes. And we knew of each other, and we had met, I think, in person once before, or maybe twice before. But we certainly didn't know each other, right? And so it was a very awesome experience for me, but the partnership's just different, right? Like you have to, hey, what are you good at? What am I good at? What are you going to do, right? And you, this is a hobby, it's not a job, so we don't sit down and say, here are your tasks, here are my tasks, right? It's more informal and sort of organic, but you have to learn each other, right?
Yeah.
And so every relation, and I've worked with a lot of different people, so every relationship is different.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is I think hobbyists maybe looking from the outside would say, oh, you have several successful games, pretty successful games. Why is it still a hobby for you at this point? Because I can probably only a few people I can think of that actually work full time as designers. It's a lot harder. How do you find time to fit it in? All your design stuff, because you work research for the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, that seems like that would be a demanding job sometimes.
Yeah, so for better or worse, I basically wake up every day and work on it. Pretty much wake up around 4, 4:30, and until about 6:30, maybe 7, that's what I work on.
Yeah.
And it's at least 6, probably 7 days a week, right? Unless something unusual happens. And then, like I said, that's not counting the times that I get together with Trevor usually to work on stuff, to do testing. So I spend, I would say, about 20 hours a week on an average week working on it, right? So it's basically a second, I mean, it's like a part-time job.
Yeah.
I treat it in some sort of middling state between a very serious hobby and a part-time job.
Yeah.
So I treat it like it's a thing. Now, one thing I did do, and this is very important, is I decided I was not going to spend the afternoon and weekends working on it outside the morning, because that wasn't fair to my family, right?
Yeah.
So I can do whatever I want as long as it doesn't affect that, right? And I mean, of course, I'll occasionally go to a convention or spend some afternoons testing or whatever, but in general, I don't do that. So it's trying to find that line between this isn't a job and it shouldn't take away from my family, right?
Yeah.
We don't need me to do this to survive.
Right.
But I also want to hold myself accountable and take it seriously.
Yeah.
So it is kind of a fine balance between those two things. And as far as, why am I not full-time? If I was a single guy, I would probably do it full-time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very difficult for a lot of reasons to make it a full-time job. One, I mean, you can't rely on the income.
Right.
Right? It's not
No, yeah.
It's not gonna,
You don't know
to
what's
sell games, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, even though the board game hobby has been growing and growing and growing, it's still very, like a informal kind of, I don't know, like just immature, right? Industry still.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, usually probably, I have to wind up chasing down royalty payments and stuff, not because people don't want to pay you, but because it's just, you've got one person doing 5,000 jobs, right?
Yes.
And so if I had, and I joke around with my fellow design partners about this all the time, like if I had to do it as a full-time job, I would it would be so stressful because you have to care about that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
I'm sorry, but I've heard that several times. That sometimes some companies they're not malicious.
No,
it just takes more time for them to get royalty checks out. So let's talk about this then. What are your kids' favorite games of yours to play? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
and then we'll just talk about what you like to play with.
Sure. So the games that I've designed that my kids like to play. So my son is easy. He's War Chest all the way.
Yeah.
He and I play War Chest, I mean, at least a couple times a week. Mm-hmm. That's minimum, right?
Yeah.
Constant. So we play a lot of War Chest. He's been playing War Chest with me since at least he was 6. Mm-hmm. He knows his War Chest.
So can he beat you regularly?
Oh, yeah. Well, so what I do is I don't ever let my kids win, but I will put them in positions that they're like kind of an advantaged position so I can try my best.
Yeah.
So I'll let him pick his units and pick my units. And so he knows what
Yeah.
combos well and he knows what doesn't, so he'll give me suboptimal combinations. Right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll never let him win. So, because when he wins, he knows he beat me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My daughter, my 11-year-old daughter, I have a game called Dire Alliance. It's not out yet.
Okay.
It was, it's with Blacklist Games, and it's going through some fulfillment issues.
Sure.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's really bad. But so what happened was they actually sent me it's a final version, it's a production copy, right? But it's before it got fulfilled. And we've had it now for quite a while, and she loves it. Loves it, loves it, loves it, loves it. As a matter of fact, I'm having the miniatures for it painted right now, and so we haven't had it for about a month, and she's like, Daddy, when are we getting Dire Alliance?
What does she like about it?
I think she likes the theme. So it plays, it's very much, so at the time, Adam and Brady Sadler, I don't know if you know them, they've done a lot of stuff. They used to work with Fantasy Flight, then they went to Bliztkrieg. So they were big fans of Undaunted, and so they said, "Hey, we want you to come do a game that's inspired by some of the same DNA as Undaunted and War Chest." So it shares some of that same gameplay style, but it's more of a miniature skirmish kind of battle game, and so it is horror themed, and so she likes the characters in it, right? One of them is a countess, like a vampire countess, who she just loves. So she likes the game. I think she likes the game fine, but she loves the theme of it.
Right. So. Did she enjoy Halloween?
Oh yes. Oh yeah. But especially my 2 daughters love Halloween, scary stuff. Okay. They always want to watch scary movies, which I don't care about, but that's their thing. So whatever they want. Yeah. Okay. And then my 13-year-old daughter, she'll play War Chest. She's by far the sort of least gamery of the kids, right? Her real thing is she likes social deduction kind of games. So she likes coups, she likes resistance. She'll play War Chest, but that's really of Dad's games. That's kind of the only one she engages in.
Yeah. So do you do family game nights or?
So my wife doesn't really play with us, but she'll play with occasionally, right? Really, the most that she'll do is she and I will occasionally play 2-player stuff. Very unusual. Like if we're on vacation or something, we'll play or something like that. Usually it's me and the younger 2 kids, my 8-year-old son, my 11-year-old daughter. They'll play anything and everything, like anything. So like war games, whatever. One thing that we do a lot, I mean, we play my games a lot, but we play a lot of solo games, but we'll play them cooperatively. So like recently we played Under Falling Skies, we played Warp's Edge, we've got Final Girl now. So we'll just get there and the 3 of us will play it, or one of the 2 of them will play with me. So we do a lot of that.
Cool. Yeah. Well, here's my big last question for you, and then if you have anything else you want to add. But if you could grab a historical figure, alive or dead, and design a game with them, who would it be and why?
Oh, wow. I've never thought about this, so let me take a second. Oh, wow.
We're gonna hold your feet to the fire on it. Whoever you say,
whoever it is,
that's it.
Who would it be?
And when resurrection technology comes along, you have to do it.
Oh man. Who would that be? It would have to be because most of my stuff is World War II, right? Like that's the main time period that I work in. I mean, I'll probably. It's a little bit of a cop-out because it's something I'm working on right now, so it would just be easy. But probably one of the pilots, like the Night Witches pilot. So I'm working on a game with Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire now about the Night Witches. So Soviet night bomber pilots. And so it would just be easy, right? Because, hey, tell me about how it felt to be there, bombing Germans in the middle of the night with your little bike.
I mean, that'd be kind of crazy, right? Like, do you think they had PTSD from that?
Well, they didn't know it was, but absolutely.
Well,
because, they fought continuously every single day for whatever, 3+ years. And they were living off of like a couple of hours of sleep at night. I mean, it got so bad that like they would fall asleep in the plane, right? Flying to or flying back from their missions. And they were certainly being given stimulants to stay awake. So after years of never having a night off,
Yeah.
flying bombing missions, flying them sometimes, 14 hours straight, not being able to sleep. I think, they came back probably pretty.
Yeah. So what would you ask them besides operational type of stuff? Like would you ask them any personal questions? Or?
I think, it's difficult, right? Because there's a lot to unpack there,
Right, yeah.
They were, after the war, women weren't formally unallowed to serve, but it was very difficult. So, you had the same thing, you had the same thing with American, like resegregation and all of this stuff. So you had these people who contributed to the success of this war, and they were basically just told, thanks, but we don't need you anymore, right?
Yeah, we used you.
We used you, we got what we needed.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot to unpack there from a personal perspective. I guess probably you would just want, how do you feel about what you're able to accomplish, right? Because it's pretty remarkable, considering all the situations they were operating in. But it was a very, it's just kind of unbelievable, right? What they were asked to do, and the environment in which they did it.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you for your time. Anything else you want to share about anything else? I mean, I can't keep track of everything coming up, but it's exciting. I'm looking forward to that one. This is awesome.
This is great.
So any other games you want to share about or talk about? Or
No, I mean, we already mentioned the next one on the horizon is Undaunted Stalingrad, which is, I'm writing a design diary for it right now, which allowed me to go back into the past and kind of relive like some of the evolution. And it's sort of mind-boggling. So it's November 2022. I went back and saw that the first time we talked about it was February 2018. So it'll have been like about 5 years in the making. And it is still like by far the most mentally taxing, right? Just because of the complexity of the legacy scenario sort of branching and stuff. And so to see it come to fruition is pretty satisfying. So I'm very excited about that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been awesome.